So I'm starting to record. Richard's just asked about teaching the chakras and whether it's predominantly girls that are interested. Interestingly enough, I taught a group of BP engineers on a lunchtime, and you can imagine they're engineers. If you've ever met, one of my friends is married to an engineer, and they think very linear. It's very linear and factual, and yeah. So, and I'm very close to him as well. So yeah, so me and him enjoy conversations because we really come from completely different places. My friend's going, "Oh, you two, will you stop?" Because he's interested, but it needs to make sense. So anyway, I started teaching these group of people, and really I do the same with any like general class that I've never met before, like I would do with the teens, is, you know, go in gently and in like normal, as in I wouldn't throw in all the chakra chat or you know, the vayus or any energetic stuff. I really am very much like children teens, men especially as well, like to know what it's good for, what happens to you when you do this. So basically it's I kind of go in there subliminally and start when you're in an asana. I can say that this chakra, this you know, say Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2, I can say this is really great for Muladhara chakra. This is your grounding, safety, security, stability. It's where you are with a group of family. It's the color red. While they're in it and they're breathing, getting them to connect to your breath. And it's very much, and then you move on and don't, so I'll pop in these little subliminal things. And it's a bit like, you know, like with things like, you know, at the moment, you know, I've got an auntie who's in her 50s. That's her partner has passed away, and she's taken to the drink just now, and which is really and it's like you only want to be, only want to hear things or do things when you're ready. And it's the same with when you go in and teach. Actually, what it is they won't go, "Oh, you be rubbish." It'll go right over their heads if they don't want to listen. It's not relevant, especially, and this is me not being sexist again. I always sound like I'm being sexist, but I was brought up with with no women. You know, my dad and my brother, so I was surrounded by men. So I have an understanding of men. So that's where it can come across as if I'm a bit anti-men, and I'm so not. It will go over the top of their head. If they actually zone out and switch off if they really don't want to know. So they won't. Women sometimes take things a bit more personally in a sense, but there's a lot of women that aren't interested in chakras either. But if you pop in, sometimes this is really good for you know, and you can pop in the anatomical or the physiological or the psychological stuff as you're practicing, so they can feel that in their bodies. So as they start feeling it in the bodies, they start going, "Wait a minute." So what I started to do was get them to really be aware of the prana in their bodies. So, you know, that get them to stop after, like, you know, each kind of set of asanas, you know, when you're doing the practice, and connecting with the breath and feel the prana. As they start to feel this thing called prana that, like, it's almost untangible, that's when they kind of are a bit more open. And I found that these men, it was mostly men, and actually one of them, it was her first ever yoga class, and she's now a yoga teacher up in Kelly Signorini. If anyone's up here has gone to any of her classes, I was her first ever yoga teacher, and it was her. She worked for BP, and they were all like, "What the hell is this Kundalini stuff?" I started introducing Kundalini and then I say, feel this. But one of the things with the engineers would be, I'd say, oh, this angle, do it to put your hands at this angle. They go, no, it's a bit more lower than that. That's the exact degree of angle. I'm like, oh, for God's sake. You know, they like to get the degrees of angles right. But there, with yoga, it is a science. So introducing the quantum physics to it. So the chakras are part of the quantum physics. What I'll do, Richard, is in your group, I'll post with my 100 hours guys, my advanced 100 hours guys. I've created a PDF on taking the chakras a little bit further, having that kind of explanation from the tantric perspective, and that might help. So it's kind of subliminally popping it in, but making it more sciencey. So it's less, you know, people think of the chakras as being something all flowery and hippy dippy. And it's actually not. The chakras are incredibly powerful. You know, it's a powerful, energetic way to live your life. Working with dissolving this is me coming into my tantric practice, dissolving the lower three chakras leads you to move into the higher chakras. Most people in their lives will only be coming from the lower two, and that's fine. But if we want to move forward and evolve more in our practices, it's about dissolving these chakras, and that comes with working with Manipura chakra, and Rudrani, and building Agni, fire in our bellies. So yeah, I could rant up for ages, but that's like a bit too advanced for the teens, and you know, for if you're introducing it to an adult's class. But pop it in there subliminally, and as you're going along every week, take it a little bit further, get them to feel that energy. You know, you can do it like working with each chakra, and the difference of feeling with the pranic energy for each chakra, it's quite tangible once they start to check in with themselves a bit more. So teaching them to check in with themselves to start with, and then progressing it to that. Yeah, does that help?
It does, yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll post that PDF. But it's more like for the advanced practitioners. But I think you guys will get it. I think you're coming from that kind of place, especially when it comes to the chakras. Even if you're not yoga teachers, some of you all have quite a high vibration. I feel so. Yeah. Has anyone got any other questions or anything they want to share? Did you find that it triggered you a little bit? You had to kind of connect to that inner teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like I have to give you like a trigger warning at the beginning, because it is like, oh, you start to understand yourself a little bit more, in a sense, and where you're coming from, and you can almost go back and heal that aspect of yourself, if that makes any sense. So, because some of the subject matter is quite deep. You don't realize doing teen yoga teacher training, it can be it's actually quite intense. But once you start working with the teens, they're amazing. So yeah. So yeah.
Sorry, I have one question. So
yeah.
you're obviously working with the teens. Do we have a responsibility as like safeguarders to like record information that they say during classes? Because I notice now they may be opening up to me a lot more than they used to. And obviously some of the information, you kind of feel like you have a responsibility to kind of talk about that to their parents, or like how do you kind of come around that? Like do you because I obviously do safeguarding with children and I'm a safeguarding officer. So how do you record that? Do you normally just take notes, and then if you feel like it is becoming a bit too much for them, then you would notify someone, or do you speak to their parents? Like, how do you get past that?
I think that's the you know, when you're doing the children's yoga teacher training, and then you're speaking about child safety. It's using your intuition, that, you know, like what you feel can be shared or should be shared, because you also, as teens, it takes a lot for them to open up, and if you share something that might not have to be dealt with, it could really affect them, that you've betrayed their trust in a sense. There's a lot that they do share with you, but it's mostly emotions, it's hormones, boy stuff, or, you know, girl stuff, you know, but mostly you get teenage girls that they're speaking about, you know, things that are going on for them, and then, you know, but it's almost like they're in a safe space. So that's what the cards that I do at the beginning isn't necessarily, you know, when I'm working with, so I'm not working with them online. If I'm dealing with them in real life, we do that circle. So it's almost like a circle of trust. And teens are terrible for intermingling out with their kind of peer groups. And I've found that working with teens when they're in different peer groups, as they're coming together every week and practicing yoga, they're opening up, they're becoming a bit more vulnerable or more authentic versions of themselves. That it's been interesting that, you know, there'll be the group that they class themselves as the nerds, and and there's another group that are classed as the popular ones. They're from the same school, but they're in the same year. They wouldn't normally mix. They start to share things and understand, that's where you're coming from. Or we understand that we all have insecurities, and there's no better or worse. It's just coming from different perspectives. So there's that kind of thing. But I have had teens where they've come to me and said, you know, at the end of class, like worried because, you know, their parents have been arguing quite a lot, and they think maybe that their mum and dad might be splitting up soon, and, you know, they don't know what to do. They're feeling really stressed, and they don't want to share that with their, you know, don't want to tell their mums that they're really stressed about their mum and dad, that they might split up. That's something that I sat with, because I went through that when I was a teenager, and probably a lot of you guys have done, or you know somebody who has. So I kind of said, yeah, I've been there before, and I know how difficult it is. And if you want to speak to me, you know I'm here. And I think that was enough for her to know that there was somebody, because she's like, I don't really want to speak to my friends about it. It's all, you know, a bit embarrassing. And the thing is, I think if I had, you know, if it got bad and I thought that there was awful things happening at home, I think it was just an unsettled home, which sometimes happens, because it came down to it that the mum and dad never split up. They were just going through it. I think they were actually, at the time, they were renovating their house, and it was really stressful for them. And after renovating a house, I can understand. But yeah, so if I'd gone to them, it might have been embarrassing for them, or it might have exacerbated the issue. I think if, you know, if there is certain things that are really, you know, I think we know in ourselves that the safeguarding thing, if it's something to do with any type of abuse, or, you know, something that's really not right, yeah, of course we should go and speak to the right person about that, and deal with it, and record. If, as you say, you can take the date and what they said, just to, if you feel that there's something that you need to keep an eye on. I think that's a great idea, just to keep an eye and make sure. But yeah, just let it by, even at the moment, I'm really, my cousins are all the same age as my kids, really, and because we've got a big family thing going on because of this, because of a death in the family, I'm kind of holding the space for my much younger cousins, and it's almost like for them knowing that there's somebody holding their space means that nothing really, it doesn't need to be action sometimes. Just knowing that there is somebody to hold your space is sometimes enough in some situations. So knowing that there's an adult there that they can trust but open up to. So it's kind of like, because they connect in with you not as, it's very different than a school teacher. I found that they shared stuff that, about asking about periods and things like that. And I think they would be asking Richard about their periods, because, but you know what I mean? But they might open up and start speaking about, emotions and relationship and boys, and because they do. And that's when I normally have come at their level, remembering what it was like for me and going, oh God, yeah. Or I'll sometimes have come in, because my daughter Kaya was the same age as, there was a group of them that I was working with at Kippy Lodge, which is Aberdeen Petroleum Club. And, I had my daughter Kaya was just playing up. She was just been horrible to me. And, showing them that you're real, you can come in and go, how are you guys today? It's like, my teenage daughter's been horrible to me just now. Are you horrible to your mums? And then they'll go, well, actually, yeah, I feel a bit bad, but I don't even know why I'm horrible to her. And then another one goes, yeah, I was really horrible to my mum. And I think it's just feeling all emotional. I was just taking it out my mum, but thinking about it. So it's kind of like you can being open to your own vulnerabilities to them, but not telling them everything, obviously, but by having that openness and having an understanding of that kind of, it's just opens them up. Because I'd be like, oh, Kaya's been really horrible to me. How are you guys as horrible to your mom? I really love Kaya, but and then I'm saying a wee joke like what she said, and it'd be how it was outrageous, this argument, and they'd be like, yeah, I had a fight like that with my mum. Yeah, I feel a bit bad about it now, actually. So yeah, it's almost like holding their space, but being their equal, but them knowing that you're not an equal in a sense. It's difficult to explain it in a way, because it's a feeling. But there's that setting the boundaries, healthy boundaries, because you're not their pal, but you are their friend in a sense. It's almost like you're like a big sister, or you'd be a big brother, Richard. So that sort of thing, as opposed to you mustn't do that, don't do that, don't do that. You've still got the boundaries, but there's almost like, because of the energy of it. So you're really in a very privileged, environment, and it's knowing how precious that is, and respecting the preciousness of their energy, because it's really raw energy when you're around teenagers. Definitely. Does that answer you're enough, Sarah?
Yeah, I think it was just like, because obviously they endow quite a lot of information, I've noticed. But I wasn't too sure. Like, I did want to create a safe space where they can open up and speak, but I wasn't too sure how much information you're meant to retain and how much you kind of pass on to the parent if you obviously are concerned about things. So
yeah, if you're really concerned, if it's really awful stuff, yeah, obviously. But I would say, it's really, if they're opening up to stuff in some ways, it doesn't need to be actioned, and sometimes they just need someone to speak to, and they're speaking amongst themselves. I remember there was different, they're from different peer groups, different different cultures as well. I had different people from different cultures. I had an Indian girl and an African girl and a Polish girl, as well as some Scottish and English girls, and a Welsh one. And it's different cultures. Oh yeah, one was from Singapore as well, and very much the way they're brought up, and they don't know what's, that's their norm. So one had said something about what had happened. I think my oldest daughter, I think she was still a teenager. This is quite a few years ago, and I was teaching teens, and my oldest daughter got the leasing. One of them had told me, oh God, I had a few drinks with my friends that weekend. And yet, as you say, like Zara, it's like, do you tell the parents, that sort of stuff? But all teens will do something like that, and I'm like, yeah, my daughter did the same, and came home and puked all over herself, and didn't do it again. And yeah, it's ridiculous. And you'll say but they open up in certain ways. That what happened, I told her the punishment I gave my daughter, and then she'd said about her punishment, and then another one went, oh my God, if I did that, this would be. And then they started speaking about how they are parented. And they were like, oh, I didn't realize that I had it a lot better than I thought I did. Or I didn't realize my parents were so strict, but it's because they care. Because one was like, my mum and dad are never around. I'm allowed to do whatever I want, really. But it makes me feel like I'm unloved. And they were like, oh, I always thought my parents were really terrible because I'll never allowed out till as late as my friends. And they were like, but that's nice because your parents care. So by sometimes having these intimate chats, and it's just little, you have to, it's a bit like if you're in business, if you're in a meeting, you can't get it rambling down. It's almost like you've got to tie it up, because it's like, yeah, remember, we're at yoga, we've got to keep going doing this. So it's not all about chats and therapy type thing, but every week you can get just a little nugget of something that they'll learn from each other in a really important way. And that's yoga, because yoga is self-awareness. But I've noticed so many times that they've had light bulb moments. And yeah, it's kind of things where, do you tell the parents or do you not? When you think, well, no, because it's, if it was an awful thing, if one was saying, yeah, I was taking drugs at the weekend and having sex with, all these, you would be like, well, I don't think that's advisable. And that's when you feel like the parents need to know that, but if they're being a normal teenager, you don't want to get them into trouble. They're, it's almost like, tell them what you think is right or wrong. Because it's like, I would say, yeah, that was pretty bad, wasn't it? Yes. And I'll say, well, when my daughter did that, this is what happened to her. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's almost like you're not agreeing with any behavior that's not good. You can say your opinion on it without judgment. It's like you're there to not judge, but you're also there to say what you feel and think and be open. So, and teaching, and it teaches them that, as you become a teenager, as it's like not all sweetness and light. There's going to be darknesses. And so not all communication is positive, but there needs to be some sort of, you sometimes need to be told or need to know things, or there's no balance. So it's to not take things personally, so teaching them that, so yeah, it's really, I would say teaching teen yoga is far more than just the asana, more than the kids and the adults. There's, from what I've shared with you during the course, I think you kind of realize that there's so much to it. Yeah, but yes, it's, I still think it's magical, and I still think it's like, you know, to be given that opportunity to help them find themselves in a way that, you know, I wish I'd found. You know, I was able to hold my own space when I was a teenager, you know, and I think by giving them they've got the tools, it's just teaching them how to use them, you know. So yeah. So has anyone got anything else to ask or share or say?
Can I just ask, with the I know you said that the teenagers like it to move quite quickly between the asanas. If you're starting from a group who've never done any yoga before, haven't got a clue, would you slow it down a little just to start with, to give them a bit more bearing? Because we all know what you're talking about, and I know they pick things up very, very quickly, but I'm just saying, in the first class, if you know, you ask anybody done any yoga before and they're totally clueless.
Yeah, definitely. I think you kind of go with the vibe of each group dynamic is different. So go with the group dynamic and the feeling and the vibe of it, you know. So you're not wanting to go in there and be really slow and get them to do a yin class the first time, but yeah, you wouldn't be throwing in loads of wild vinyasas if they're a bit older teens and they've never done it before, because they'll feel intimidated and they'll feel, oh, I'm a bit rubbish, I'm not worth it, and they feel like that anyway. So yeah, it's like, go with what you feel, you know, what you feel that they need. Do they need to be, you know, go with the energy of the day, you know. If it's a really, in Scotland we say a dreich day, you know, if it's dreich, it's like grey and cold and drizzly. You need to be uplifted in a way, but you don't necessarily have to do it with the, you know, the wild asanas. You can work with more, you know, inhales, you know, you can work breathing into the chest, a little bit more back bending to give them that energy. But then sometimes they can, so that could be with they're feeling really like tamasic and ugh. But then sometimes they're really frazzled, you know. It'll be like they're just like, oh my goodness, just before exam time, and they need that little bit of nurturing. So that's where you work with bringing in, you know, asanas and pranayama that can, you know, that work with their parasympathetic nervous system, you know. So working more belly breathing, working on the exhale, forward bending, hip openings are nurturing. If there's like a bit of like, you know, where they feel a lack of enthusiasm in a sense, laterals are really good. So lateral stretches, like I encourage you for enthusiasm, growth, and seeing things from a different perspective, you know. So think, well, what do they need? Where am I going to take them today as well? What's the, you know, what's the weather like? What is that, you know, if it's a full moon as opposed to a new moon, there's an energetic difference there. Once you start getting into all that sort of stuff, it really works. You speak to any teacher about, you know, the difference with kids in schools with when there's a full moon. Yeah, there is a huge difference. So working with that sort of understanding, so knowing kind of what that energetics is and what, so thinking of the asana, pranayama, your shavasana, just all the biomechanics and energetics of asana, like using it almost like alchemy, you know, like making a magic potion. Like, what can I do? What can I put in there to give them that vibe? So making it magical in that sort of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Cool. So yeah, so you guys, you've got the exam papers, the little quiz things, and thing that I've put in there, that's to be done. And then for your for you to pass or be certified, there's the class to teach. So you don't have to have a group of teenagers in front of you to teach it. You can just record yourself doing it. If you're not, I've found that doing it in Zoom is quite, is quite helpful. And because it's less than an hour, then you don't have to have the paid Zoom thing if you don't already pay for that. So you can do it in that length of time. And then I found that you can record it, and it's an MP4, and then you can put it, and it'll go onto your computer. It's an MP4, and then if you go into YouTube, if you don't have an understanding of this is how my guys have learned and how I've learned. You can go onto YouTube and download it into, like, set up a YouTube channel, and the public, members of the public don't need to see it. If you don't want anyone looking at your stuff, that's fine. So when you download it, it's actually quite simple to do. And you can try and do it, try and fiddle about with it beforehand if you want. But you put that in, and then when it asks whether you want what you want to save it as, you don't save it as, well, you can save it as public if you want the public to see yours, because I know that Zara, your children's one was amazing. I loved that. That definitely should be public, and you should share that, because it was just like so magical. You could see you've got such a passion. So yeah, so you can either share it to the public, but if you do it private, no one will see it. So save it as unlisted. And then when it's in there, that means only people that have the link, have that link to the video, can see it. And then you can share that link with us guys in the group. And I think it's really beneficial. Unless you feel really shy and you just want to send the link to me, that's fine. But I think it's great. And most of the groups that I've run courses in share their recordings with each other, because then you see that you all have different styles. You're all coming from different places. You see the feedback, and you can give each other feedback and support each other. And you learn so much from each other as well. So you could just share that in the group. So there's you teach the 45-minute or 40 to 45-minute teen class, and include your a meditation there, or you can do a separate meditation or relaxation if you want a little mini one, if you want to do a little separate one, or you can include that in your recording. I really want everyone to just come from your own authentic teaching selves. Everyone does things differently. I've given you all the information. You've got an understanding of where you come from with yoga and where you came from, as a teen. If you were a teen, or what would you want to share, or what type of teens do you want to work with? What is it that you want to do and share? Instead of, I really don't want to churn out, generic versions of me. God, one of me is enough, because it would just annoy everybody. But yeah, so I would love to see everyone's unique teaching style, so you can share it with each other, and there's no judgment. I think if there is anything, I'm always very honest, so it's critiquing. If there's something, I'll go, oh, that's just because you learn as you go along. And so there's and there's also no rights or wrongs in a sense. It's just I might pick up something that possibly that might be a bit dangerous to do, and that's important for me to say. But most of the time, it's just wonderful to see everyone's different styles and where they're coming from. But yeah, that's what you're working towards now. But there's no rush, as I said. So you have that year. Most people don't take a year. but there's no rush, so don't ever feel overwhelmed. Some people want to just fire through, get it done, and get on and help the teens. So come from your own place and do what feels right for you. And as I said, you know, I'm here to, you know, maybe once lockdown's ended, if some of you guys are up here, great to catch up in real life for a cuppa and a chat. But for everyone, I'm so happy to do a video call with you and a cup of tea and catch up and answer any questions, or just to connect in. So yeah, I really don't want this to be a faceless training. I know a lot of online stuff, people just go on with it, and I really want you to know that I have your backs. And, you know, even once you're certified, you know, I want to support you throughout this. You know, it's a journey, and it's great. So, but teaching teens is challenging too. But, you know, challenges are opportunities for growth. And yeah, so it makes life more interesting. Anyway, yeah. So have you got anything else to ask before I stop rambling on at you and I can set you free into the wilderness? Is that you? You're all fine and dandy.
Louisa, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
So the assessment thing, quiz, what kind of length of answer are you looking for? I mean, is it like a couple of words or sentences or paragraphs or?
Well, yeah. So as I said, everyone is different. So some people want to, you know, I get some pages and pages and pages of you, and they really do. And you know, I had one student who'd made it into little folders and like booklets and everything. But, you know, if the answer to you is like, you know, one, you know, I'm not looking for, you know, if it just is like a date or a name, that's fine. But, you know, obviously don't expect it to be just one word. There'd be some parts of it where I do want you to apply like how you understand it from your own personal perspective. So, but I'm not expecting screeds and screeds and screeds of paperwork. So it's kind of, again, working with you. You can tell with me, I'm rubbish at getting to the point. It takes me, my kids both go, oh my God, my daughter Levi always goes, I said, well, you didn't answer my WhatsApp message. She says, well, I got halfway through and I got bored and I stopped reading it. You write so much. So yeah, so some people can be really straight to the point, and some people are a bit more like me. So do what feels right for you. And I just want to support you and you being you. So if you get the answer, that's, you know, and some of it, because it's yoga, some of it is, yeah, there's a right answer, there's a wrong answer. But some of the things where it comes from your personal perspective, there's some of the philosophy stuff. You know, who am I to say whether it's right or wrong? I just want to feel your vibe in a sense and know that know that you're coming from the right place. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Oh, Zoom is like. So thank you so much for being so understanding last Sunday. Sorry for being a mutant and damaging my fingertips. It's just lovely to connect in with you guys, and you know, so please keep in touch. And if you're still working through the course, that's just fine and dandy. And if you're still working through it and you come up to a video and it's like, what on earth is she on about? And you need to ask away, okay? So please keep in touch and keep in touch with each other as well. It's a really lovely group. Okay, so enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'm away to go and get my cats and take them to their new home now. So that's exciting, me being a cat lady and all. So yeah, so have a lovely Sunday. and I'm really excited to see your videos as well. So yeah, but as I said, there's no rush. Okay, when you're ready. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
lots of
Thanks,
love.
Teresa.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
Bye.